Hello friends, you join me here in Whistler, British Columbia. This is the first time I've ever been this far west, not only in Canada, but in North America. And I was really excited to have a chance to finally see what everybody has been talking about when it comes to the West Coast. Now, over the past week or so, I've been driving this 2024 Nissan Rogue Platinum. It's a refresh for this model year with some slight changes that we're going to be touching on. And we've been driving it around this great province, and especially up into the mountains here in Whistler, so I'll give you a pretty good idea of how this vehicle is in some different terrain to what we're used to back home. So this uses a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder engine producing 201 horsepower, 225 pound-feet of torque, and still uses a CVT. Now, a lot of people have complained about this switch to a smaller engine. You know, we have less cylinders now, but Nissan isn't the first brand to be using a 3-cylinder here in North America. It is one of the first in this size segment. Usually we see that in the subcompact space, but for the most part it's worked out, especially at this high elevation here. We haven't had any issues, and the fuel economy has been pretty good. With 3 people and luggage in it, I've had no complaints. Now, the other big change for 2024, front end has updated. We have a new front fascia. The grille has changed. It's going to be similar to what the new Nissan Kicks looks like, as well as the new Armada. Also, we have the 12.3-inch infotainment system now running Google built-in. It's the first of the new Nissan infotainment systems to be running this. We're going to be seeing that as new vehicles progress, but it matches the same 12.3-inch gauge cluster found on the interior of the vehicle. Aside from that, though, this vehicle is priced at about $47,000, making it a little bit more on the expensive side, considering there are still missing features on this, like no ventilated seats. Would have liked to have seen that for this price point, but we do have things like heated seats, heated steering wheel, side window sunshades, which is a nice plus, panoramic sunroof, 360-degree cameras, and pretty much the full suite of safety technology that we would expect with the Nissan ProPilot Assist system. So now you're going to join me as we hit the road, driving around the beautiful terrain and beautiful landscapes here in Whistler, BC, and talking more about the 2024 Nissan Rogue Platinum. All right, we're on the road in the 2024 Nissan Rogue. Let's talk a little bit about fuel efficiency. Obviously, we can't do our 100-kilometer test loop because we're nowhere close to where we live, but we have averaged 9 liters per 100 kilometers so far with this 1.5 liter 3-cylinder variable compression turbo engine. Now, we have featured a variable compression engine before. In fact, it was on the Infiniti QX50, and same with the 55, that uses a similar but different engine, but similar setup of variable compression, which means that it can change the compression of the engine depending on the needs of the situation. So in some cases, it can be more fuel efficient, and in others, it can increase power and performance to get the most out of the engine, which is why the energy numbers are pretty good. 201 horsepower out of such a small engine is actually pretty good, and same with the pound-feet, right? 225, that's nothing to complain about. Now, here in Whistler, according to Google, we're about 670 meters above sea level, whereas back in St. Thomas, we're about 209 meters above sea level. So it's not a huge difference, right? Only about 450 meter difference between the two. So it's not like we're crazy high up in the mountains here, but it's still, slightly thinner air. And the car's had no problem. Again, we've been driving around mostly with the 3 of us, my wife, my daughter, and I. We've had luggage in the vehicle. I had no issues with it. So I think overall fuel efficiency is good. Performance is pretty decent as well. So it's something to consider if you're in the market for one of these vehicles. Now, we've been seeing over the years, there was a bit of a trend where engine displacements were getting bigger, something like the Mazda CX-5. It was a 2.5 liter. People wanted more power. They added the turbo. And now you're looking at something like this Rogue where they've removed a cylinder essentially, right? They've made it a smaller displacement but kept a pretty good amount of power out of it. So I think depending on what you're looking for, you're going to be in the market for something in this range. Because a lot of the other vehicles now, it's less power, right? Like 160 to 180 horsepower. So I think it works overall. Now let's talk about the ride, drive, and comfort. As we've been driving around here in Whistler and Vancouver, driving around the great province of British Columbia, comfort has been very good. I mean, these are the zero gravity seats. We've tested quite a few times over the years here on Test Drive. They work very well. And if you really want to know everything there is to know about this current generation Nissan Rogue, I do recommend you check out the video that we did on it a couple years ago when this new model came out. So we do have a video up on that. It will be linked at the end of the video as well as above in the cards but gives you an idea of what this vehicle has to offer, because aside from the engine and the infotainment, it's more or less the same thing, right? Front end looks nice. We parked next to one at the hotel, same color, wasn't the same trim. I believe it was like an SL, but the grill's nice. It gives it a bit of a classier look to it. We've got some pretty cool looking rims on here, so I like that. But the infotainment is definitely a standout feature. It's something that Nissan has struggled with over the years. We've talked about it over the years that they really haven't changed it in the last decade, so it is nice to finally see something different here. I have been using wireless Apple CarPlay just because it's been easier, but I could have easily signed into Google Maps and not had to worry about using my phone and just be able to use the built-in Google Map functionality with the vehicle. Would have been excellent. We've tested that on other vehicles and from other brands. It's starting to be kind of a standard thing. A lot more brands are going with that, so it's nice to see. The 360 cameras, they're pretty usable. They're not the highest quality. It's something, again, that we've talked about. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of an improvement there, but for the most part, they are functional. And again, I mean, we're just missing ventilated seats. When we think of other range-topping vehicles in the compact consumer crossover segment, that is a feature that you get typically at the top end across the board. It might not always have to be at the top end. It could be a trim below, but it is something that is offered pretty much with every other vehicle in the segment. It's not here again. That's something that we would have complained about back in 2022 when we featured this vehicle the first time, and it's something that I'm going to complain about again here because it would have been nice. Temperatures have kind of fluctuated this week that we've been here. It's currently like 18 degrees, I believe 15 degrees according to the car. It's going to go up to like 30 today. So having some ventilated seats would have been nice. But the trade-off, you do have the tri-zone climate control. So the rear seats have their own temperature control. You've got the sunshades back there. You've got heated seats for the outboard seats back there. Those are nice things to have. Plus, everything has been replaced with USB-C now in the car. So if you're a current phone user, you're in the current era of technology, you're going to be happy you're going to be able to use USB-C throughout. So for the most part, it works pretty well. But I have to say that our time here has been good. It's been a nice vehicle. I actually am happy to have taken this over the Infiniti QX80 that we had asked for, just because parking this thing in the underground parking at the hotels we've been at has been a lot easier than it would have been with a full-size luxury SUV, so it worked out well for that. But like I said, the drive ride comfort has been good. Fuel efficiency has been nothing to complain about, and again, we've all been comfortable driving around in this vehicle. There's just a couple small misses when it comes to it, but again, maybe it's something that we'll see in a model year refresh or a complete overhaul. But I think the only thing that's really missing from this is some sort of electrification. It's something that I mentioned while we were driving up and down the mountains here coming up to Whistler. There's a lot of downhill, a lot of good opportunity to get regen on even just a regular hybrid setup. Would have been fantastic. So that would have been nice to see. I've heard rumors that Nissan will start to incorporate some of the Mitsubishi plug-in hybrid technology, because as we've talked about before, and even recently a couple times this year, the Mitsubishi Outlander is based on the same platform now as this Rogue, and that has a plug-in hybrid system. So that would be nice to see if Nissan's able to get that here in North America. I do believe they do have it in other markets outside of here in Japan and Europe, so something like that would have been great, because BC is the third largest market here. It might actually be the second largest market in Canada when it comes to electric vehicles after Quebec. So there are a lot of charging stations. I've passed by quite a few. We could have had plenty of places to charge up a plug-in hybrid on our way, which would have just improved the overall fuel efficiency. So something else to consider, Nissan, if you're listening, let's get those hybrids. Let's get those plug-ins. People want them. Not everybody needs fully electric yet, but having a stepping stone in between is perfect. Now, again, as I mentioned, we have done the Nissan Rogue of this generation previously, so you can check out that video. If you have any questions about this car or anything else that we're doing here on Test Drive, don't hesitate to leave a comment. We do get back to everybody that we can. In fact, I had just replied to somebody because I had replied a year after they had commented. We do get back to all the top quality comments first. So if you've got something constructive to say, something that adds to the conversation, you will get replied to first. But we do eventually get to all the comments, and that is our goal, is to reply to absolutely everybody who leaves a comment. So we appreciate you if you've done that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You can become a member and help support the channel, as well as visit our merch store. It is linked in every single video that we have up, so you can check out some of the unique designs that we have there. But I appreciate you watching this video, and until next time, I will be back in Ontario. But that is all we have to say here from Whistler, British Columbia. Take care.